Chaldean grammar, chapter 3, adjectives. In Chaldean, they're called shumahe adjectives. Adjectives are words that are used to describe nouns. Chaldean adjectives come after the noun they modify, and they follow its gender and its number. So if you want to say a good person, in English, we put the word good first, and it takes kind of the same form. It doesn't really change form no matter who or what you're describing. Good is just kind of good. So in English, it comes first, and then the noun person comes second. In Chaldean, it's just the opposite. You say the word for person, nasha, and then after nasha, you put the word tawa. So if you want to say good person, you say nasha tawa. Nasha tawa. So person good, something like that. If you want to say a Chaldean princess, amirta, that's the word for princess, Chaldeita, Chaldean. Amirta Chaldeita. So it comes second. The adjective comes second. A beautiful house is Betha Shapira. So house is Betha. Shapira is beautiful. Betha Shapira, beautiful house. Deep thoughts. Hushawe amuke. Hushawa is a thought. Hushawe is thoughts. And then amuke is deep. Now, you're probably already noticing that the form of the adjective is similar to or is following the noun that it's modifying. That's correct. So we're going to go through that in this chapter. So we'll start with feminine adjectives. Feminine adjectives are formed by, you take the masculine and you can do one of three things to a masculine adjective to make a feminine adjective. You can just add a tau with a skapa at the end of the word. So if you have the word for good, this is an adjective for good, tawa, that's how you describe a masculine noun, a singular masculine noun. If you want to say a good man, you say gora tawa. But you can't say tawa when you're referring to a feminine noun. You have to make the adjective feminine if you're going to modify a feminine noun. So if you want to say a good girl, you say brata tauta. So what you did there is you took the adjective tawa and you added a tau and a skapa before the final alap. Tawa becomes tauta. Similarly, if you want to say, it's a beautiful day, you say yoma, which is masculine, shapira. This is the word for beautiful, shapira. But if you want to say a beautiful woman, you can't say shapira because the word bakhta is feminine. You have to say bakhta shapirta. So shapira becomes shapirta. And this is the noun you would use the adjective that you would use to modify any feminine noun. If you want to say a house that's far away, Betha rahuqa. Betha is, even though it has a tau at the end, Betha is masculine. Betha rahuqa. If you want to say a far city, city is mvita, it's a feminine noun, you have to modify the adjective mvita rahukta. A far off city, rahukta. Rahuqa, rahukta. So here, Gaura tawa, good man. Bakhta tauta, good woman. So that's one way to take a masculine adjective and make it feminine. If the adjective ends in a yod, as in there's a yod before the final alap, you take that yod and you make it a hwasa, you put the dot under it, and then you add a tau with a skapa at the end of the word. So you do something similar, you still add a tau and a you add a ta at the end, or a tha, but you also take the yod. So here's the word for sweet, khilya. This is one of the words for sweet. There's different ways to say it. Khilya. Well, if you want to make it a feminine adjective, you take the yod and you make it into a hwasa. So it's khlitha. So you add the dot under the yod, and then you add a thou alap at the end. Khilya, khlitha. Brona kirya, a short boy. If you want to say a short girl, you say brata kritha. Kirya, kritha. So again, you're adding the dot to the yod, and you're putting a tha at the end. Kirya, kritha. Sapya, a pure, let's say a pure heart. Libba sapya. Okay. And then, I don't know, let's say a pure girl or something like that. Brata spitha. Again, you put the dot under the yod, and you pronounce it e, and then you add the tha at the end. Sapya, spitha. So anytime you have any adjective that has a yod before the final alap, this is what you're going to do to make it feminine. So here, a short time, zona kirya. If you want to say short road, urcha, remember urcha is feminine even though there's no tau at the end. Urcha kritha, a short road. So that's the second way to make a feminine adjective. If there's an adjective that ends in a noon, again, by ends in, I don't mean the very last letter, I mean the one right before the alap. If there's an adjective that ends in a noon, you add a yod and then a tau with a skapa at the end of the word. So this is somewhat similar to this, to chilya chlitha. You have shmeyana, so this means heavenly, shmeyana, becomes shmeyanitha. So what are you doing here? You're adding a yod, in this case another yod, because there's already a yod here, but you're adding a yod after the noon, and then a thau alap. So you take shmeyana and you add etha at the end of it. Shmeyana, shmeyanitha. Behrana, bright or enlightening, something like that. Behrana becomes behranitha, if you're modifying a feminine noun. Maqaryana, like a teaching book, kthawa maqaryana. And then, I don't know, let's say a teaching page, patha is feminine. Patha maqaryanitha. Again, you're adding this etha ending. So you have Baba Shmeyana, Heavenly Father, Melkutha Shmeyanitha, Heavenly Kingdom. So those are the ways to make a feminine noun. Here's another way. If you have adjectives that are in the intensive form, we don't know what that is. You're going to learn about the intensive in several chapters from now. But what is it? How can you recognize an intensive form? It's a form that begins with a meme. So if you have an adjective that begins with a meme, you make it feminine by adding a vowel to the last radical and a tau with a skapa at the end of the word. So there is a pretty common pattern to all of these. All of them have a tau and a skapa at the end. Whether it's a tau or a thou, they all have something like this at the end, all these versions of the feminine adjective. So if you take the word mshubha, mshubha means glorified. You see the meme at the beginning, that makes it an intensive form. If you want to make this into a feminine adjective, you're going to have to move some vowels around. Mshubha becomes mshubahta. So what happened here? The vowel moved back to the beth, and it turned into a pthaha, shubah, and then the ta at the end is added. And here it's a hard tau. Mzubna, something that's sold, becomes mzubanta. So again, the vowel on the noon goes back one radical to the beth. It becomes a pthaha, and you add the tau alap at the end. Mzubna, mzubanta. Muqatla is actually a causative, but it's okay to learn it here. Muqatla, murdered. Muqtalta, muqtalta. So again, the vowel goes from the lameth back to the taith, and then you add the tau alap at the end. Now, here's my advice on how to learn these. it's okay to learn the rule, but people when we speak languages, we don't sit there in the middle of a sentence and say, okay, I need to apply this rule, so I need to move the vowel back and then add a tau alif at the end. I don't think that's a good way, a healthy way to sort of learn the language. A healthier way is just kind of get the feel, get the sound of it, get used to saying mshubha, mshubahta, mshubha, mshubahta, and just sort of learn the like feel it. A meme at the beginning means it's going to turn into this when you make it a feminine. Mzubna, mzubanta, mzubna, mzubanta. Kind of get the rhythm of it, get the feel of it. It's really your body that learns a language, not just your sort of disembodied intellect. So kind of get the feel for it. Don't just learn the rules. Muqatla, muqtalta. Muqatla, muqtalta. So here's some examples. Shimma, mshubha, glorified name. Trithayutha is the word for Trinity, mshubahta. So mshubha, mshubahta. Adjectives in the causative form. So now there's another thing you're not gonna learn for a while, but I'm introducing the word here. The intensive form begins with just a meme. The causative form begins with a meme and a vowel on the meme. The vowel can be an u or it can be a a. Okay. Actually, it doesn't, even the examples here, they don't always have that. But anyway, let's take a look at this. These are formed by adding a vowel to the last radical and a tau with a skapa to the end of the word. So, mburibza, spilled, mburbezta. This is basically the same as the intensive form, this example. Mburibza, mburbezta. The vowel goes back to the beth and then the tau ala. Mshu'abdha, tortured. Mshu'badhta. Yeah, it's the same. Maybe in a later edition of this book, I'll just get rid of 4 and 5 and just make this all the same. Muqriya, muqretha. Yeah, same thing. The vowel moves back and then the tau alif. So this is the same. There's a nice correction for the book someday. So you have Auda Mshu'abdha, a tortured servant. Khaddamta is a female servant, a handmaid. Mshu'abadhta. So the vowel moves back, you add the tau alif. Same form. Okay, this is worth noting, and this is a good place to note it. Most of the time, a feminine adjective is going to have a tau alif at the end, and that's going to be the indicator for a feminine adjective. But sometimes, on occasion, the final vowel is used to indicate a feminine singular form, not a masculine plural, as you will see in the next section. So if you were to ask your grandmother or your mom, how are you? Dikhiwat or dekhiwat. If you were to ask your dad, he would say randa. Randa is the word for I'm doing fine, doing well. Randa. Your mom is not going to take a tau and put it at the end of that word. She's not going to, if you're going to say, how are you, mom? Dekhiwat, mom. She's not going to say randta. There's a special form. It's not very common, but you'll see it in some words that you change the vowel from a to a I, and that becomes a feminine form. So you'll say, how are you? She'll say rande. And even though that's exactly how you make a plural, in this case, it's not a plural, it's a feminine. It's rare, but it is around if you see it. If you want to say this woman is barren, she can't have children, she'll be aqare. You can say aqartha, but it's not as common. Aqare is how you describe somebody as sterile or barren. If you want to say your right hand, the word hand is feminine because there's 2 of those body parts. Either dyamne, yamne, and that's a feminine form. So here, either dyamne. So it is a fairly rare thing, but you will see it once in a while, and it's good to be able to recognize it, this form of the feminine. Okay. How do you make a plural adjective? Plural adjectives are generally formed from the singular by changing the final skapa to a zlama, just like the masculine plural noun. So this is exactly the same as the noun. Tawa becomes tawe. Gora tawa, gure tawe. Khilya, one sweet thing. Khilye, many sweet things. Shmeyana, shmeyane. This is a very common form, and you already know it because that's exactly how you turn a noun plural. So, goratawa, guretawe, guretawe. Again, just get the feel of it. The adjective sort of rhymes with the noun that it's modifying. Mshubha, mshubha. So it works with this intensive form as well. Mu'aliya, mu'aliya. It works with this causative form as well. Nashatawa, nashitawe. One thing that is thankfully fairly easy in Chaldean, if you want to make a feminine plural, it actually uses the masculine form most of the time. So if you want to say orchatha, this is paths or ways, it's a feminine noun. You don't have to say orchatha rahuqatha or something like that. It's perfectly acceptable to say orchatha rahuqe. You can use the masculine plural also for a feminine. So basically think of this as a common plural form for both masculine and feminine. Binatha shapira. Beautiful girls. Mathwatha rabe. Large villages. However, on the other hand, if you want to sound super fancy, emphatic meaning, you can use a feminine form of the adjective. You can say orchatha rahuqatha. If you're writing a poem and you want to sound super fancy, nothing wrong with it. Binatha shapiratha. Maybe if you're trying to flatter people and you want to, use a especially fancy word, shapiratha. It'll make you sound sort of a little bit more well-read. Tholatha nakhbatha yimmatha qaddishatha. Okay. Finally, this is an interesting, important point, and this is the last point of the lesson. You can take an adjective and just use the adjective alone, and that will turn it into a noun. So if you want to just say a good man, you just take the masculine form of good, and that's all you need to do. So the word tawa, he's a good man, or good one. That's a good one, tawa. If you want to say a saint, the word for holy, the adjective holy is qaddisha. But if you just take the word qaddisha by itself, it just means a holy person or a saint. And if you make it plural, qaddishe, just use that word by itself, it means the saints. So that adjective is now being used as a noun, qaddishe. And if you want to describe a bunch of wise women, you can just say hakimatha. It's using this feminine form here. Okay. Let's look at the vocab. Bisha is evil. Oh, by the way, so now I'm giving you all kinds of adjectives here. Please take some of these, just like the exercises will tell you, and practice with them, make it plural and so on. So let's do bisha. If you want to say bisha and evil, something is evil. If you want to say something feminine is evil, bishta. Bishta. And if you want to say evil people, bishe. Nashe bishe. Bricha is blessed. Bricha, brichta, briche. The word for without is dla. You can kind of see this. Of, not. So without. Small is zora or zora. We kind of soften that I usually. The word for just is zaddiqa. Powerful is helthana. It's kind of a classical word, helthana. Hakima is wise. Khilya, we've seen, is sweet. Tawa, we've seen, is good. Kena is righteous. Chaldaya is Chaldean. Kpina is hungry. Kriha is sick. So a sick man, Gaura Kriha. And then a sick woman is Bakhta Krehta. And then sick people would be Nasha Krihe or just Krihe by itself. The word la is not or no. The word for exalted, mu'aliya, means lifted up. Mortal, mayotha. Suffering is mshu'abda, we've seen that already. Amuqa is deep. Sapya is poor. Qaddisha is holy, we just saw that. Raba is large or great. Ruhanaya is spiritual. Rahuqa is distant. Shapira is beautiful. Sharira can mean true or it can mean strong in a kind of classical way. Shmeyana is heavenly. These are exercises, active translation into Chaldean, passive translation into English. Make all these adjectives feminine, make all of them plural. It's a really good exercise. Correct these phrases in Chaldean. So there's something wrong with all of these. Fix them in one way or another. And then compose 7 short phrases using all the materials from chapters 1, 2, and 3. Now that we're 3 chapters in, I strongly recommend starting to review previous stuff. And if you're going to review, my recommendation is always to review backwards. Do not start from chapter 1 and then review chapter 1 and then chapter 2 and chapter 3. If you do that, you're just going to know chapter 1 really well, and then the later stuff you're just not going to know at all. Always review backwards. So when you review chapter 3 first, then chapter 2, and then chapter 1, and so on as we go through the book. That's my strong recommendation. All right, see you next chapter.